Viva La France. Friday, November 13, 2015 was undoubtedly one of the darkest days in the French history, at least in the recent history, in particular for Parisians, where well-orchestrated and coordinated attacks by 3 or 4 different groups of members of ISIS took place, which caused 129 people to die and over 320 to be injured, some of them very seriously, and they are still fighting for their lives in various hospitals in Paris. The initial reaction by the French politician, in particular President Hollande, was of one of retaliation and revenge. Of course, this should be and is every human being's initial reaction when tragedy like this take place. But once we allow cooler heads prevail, then we would realize fighting ISIS by campaign of bombing may not be the best solution and in fact may backfire. The reason I'm saying that, for the past few months, that's what has happened. France, United Kingdom, and United States have systematically bombed a region belonging or being controlled by ISIS. The result has been not too effective, although many ISIS members have been destroyed and killed, and many of their infrastructure might have been damaged. But the fact remains, many of the individual civilians who live in that region and are controlled by ISIS also died. Death of innocent people give cause to ISIS to expand their operation and promote anti-West uh, sentiment in those regions, and which creates more recruits for them. If one wants to fight ISIS effectively, then we should have more than military operation in mind. One way is to fight ISIS is through economic means. We must do everything possible to curb and control any economic activities by ISIS. Since ISIS took over many regions of Iraq where the oil fields are, that gives them economic power. Through access to oil, they have been able to sell oil through black market to various companies and countries. Destroying that route and the sale of oil could be one effective way to curb ISIS' financial might and strength. Another one is to make sure there is no commerce and trade activities between ISIS and anybody else, whether it's the individual, companies, or countries for that matter. ISIS needs to be controlled financially. The weaker financially ISIS becomes, the less able they will be to buy weapons, train people, and expand their operation, and have access to uh, other tools and equipment for their operation. Another policy that needs to be implemented is an effective campaign against ISIS to deter and discourage recruitment. Many young people from Europe and some from the United States of America have gone through Turkey to Syria to join ISIS. Many of these young people, some of them under the age of 18, obviously do not realize what they're getting into. They have seen some promotional material on Facebook and other social media from ISIS, and excitement of being in action and doing just against some infidels might have caused them to join, but in reality they don't know what they are getting into. The United States, and in particular the Western countries in Europe, must do better. They must initiate and implement an effective campaign policy against ISIS, therefore to stop recruitment of youngsters to their force. ISIS used to be initially a few hundred, then a few thousand forces. Now there are over 20 and some estimate over 30,000 strong. If there is no campaign to stop expansion of personnel and fighters in ISIS, they grew even larger. United States and Europe need to do whatever it takes to make youngsters understand, especially the young people of Muslim faith, that joining ISIS is not to their best interest, and also controlling the travel between the regions, typically Turkey, which the route to going to join ISIS through Syria is uh, one that needs to be more effectively monitored and controlled. Then we have the military operation. If you're going to have a military operation, which it is thought that is necessary, it needs to be more than just using drone and bombers to drop bombs over certain area, hoping that members of the ISIS will be destroyed. Although there has been some uh, effectiveness in that bombing campaign, but as I said earlier, many innocent people have been killed, which caused ISIS to grow. The hatred that ISIS promotes by these bombings in the population against the West is giving breathing room to ISIS and growth. If we are going to have military operation and to be effective, it must include soldiers on the ground and also more effective human intelligence. Lack of these two will not be to the best interest of Europeans and US. If there is going to be a military operation, it must be troops on the ground supported by air campaign. And these are the ways that we can control ISIS. Also, economic um, aid to the region. As we know, Syria, Iraq, Libya are economically devastated, and some people have lost hope, and out of anger they may join ISIS. Allowing economic growth and hope to citizens of this region will cause them to think twice before joining ISIS. Throughout the history, humans, when they see no hope, they are gravitated to the worst. This is true in America, in Europe, in Africa, in South America, in Asia, and anywhere else where the human beings have ever lived. We must give hope to the people of the region in order for them to stay away from joining ISIS or sympathizing with ISIS. Where there is no hope, there is terror and anger. As to France, as I said earlier, many politicians, including the president, are campaigning and talking about more attack, revenge against ISIS, and also trying to implement policies that makes immigration to France more difficult, and also monitoring certain ethnic groups, mainly the Muslims. These policies and actions are taken out of fear. And if that happens, that shows ISIS has won. It was very heartening to hear and see many Parisians, when they were interviewed, they said they are not going to change their lifestyle because of the attack on November 13th. Because if they do, that shows ISIL has won. And that is the reason France should not change their way of life. Today, when I heard on the news that President Hollande has decided to continue accepting refugees, in particular from Syria, that was very great news. That shows that France is going to stand firm and not to do what ISIS is hoping for France to do, to isolate Muslim population from Europe and to separate them from the rest of Europe by disallowing them to enter Europe, or at least France for that in that particular case. And that was somewhat of a good news. And for more, you can visit safaipost.com. Viva la France.